you can hear me, maybe post a comment in the group. That would be cool. Um, so I don't want to start yet. I just want to make sure before. I want to make sure that it's all going through. But I'm going to be talking about 4 or 5 things today that can really, really help get you results easier and faster. And that's kind of what I've been working on stuff for the Creative Visionary program, and these are the notes that I'm kind of working on and creating some content around these ideas. So I thought I'd just test them, test them here and share them with anyone who's on this page. Oh, good, Teresa, wonderful. Hey, Ruth, nice. Oh, hey, Bear Bait, long time. Haven't talked to you in a while. Nice to see you here. So I thought I would start with a story today about when I was early on when I was working, and it was really, really hard. Art making was super, super frustrating for me. And what I did, what I thought was the way to figure this out was to be coming up with all these different ways of working. And not only that, but all the different materials I could use. So for a week, I would think that watercolor was what I would love. And I would look at all these artists' work that made watercolors, John Singer Sargent in particular. And I thought, because I used to paint more realistically back then, and I thought that, if I had those materials, that I would, that I somehow, that was it, and then I would grow tired of that. And then I thought encaustic, encaustic was the materials that would get me to the finish line, and I still have them actually. I bought a lot of encaustic materials. I bought the metal tray, the palette that heats up, and I got all those expensive color. And encaustic's really beautiful, by the way. The materials are almost enough right there to get you there. But then I grew tired of that, and work didn't really get any better. And so then I thought, well, you know what? All this color, I'm going to do. I'm just going to do drawings, and I tried to do that. And then, I tried everything. And the upside of that was that I got good at a lot of, I know how to use a lot of art materials because I thought that was my problem. And I remember I did it in school, and in school it's kind of okay because you're supposed to be trying all these things. But then I just kept going this way, and I spent so much on art materials and so much time. And it's really hopeful. You go to the art store and you buy all this new stuff and you bring it home and you're terrified and you lay it all out and then you try something, and then you kind of get disillusioned and the work's not really working, and then you do something else. And, and I was very much fueled by looking at other people's work. I don't know if you guys relate to that, when you're not feeling so great in your work, you tend to look outside of yourself and you look at all the other great artists out there, dead or otherwise. And you compare yourself and you try to make work like theirs, or think that if it's the materials, or maybe I want to be a sculptor, like if I, maybe I should be like George O'Keeffe and live in the desert, or paint paintings like that, or right. Yeah, Teresa saying, I've tried most media, but discovered it's not the materials, it's how I use them. Yeah, totally. And it's pretty obvious now. But for me back then, I got so wound up in this, and I was at the point where I had tried everything and I was going to stop making art. And I think I was 25 or 23 or something. And I had saved some money up, my girlfriend and I, and we decided to just stop. And I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I didn't think art was going to work. So I figured, let's just leave. And we got out of our lease. We, turned off the telephone answering machine. We did all this stuff, and we left. And we bought round the world plane tickets. And we went to Tahiti. Actually, was the first stop. It was a French airline, UTA, and it went all over the world. But it's in the South Pacific. It stopped at all these French colonial places, but Tahiti and New Hebrides and stuff. And and I thought, when I was packing, I thought, well, I'll bring a sketchbook. I mean, it's been a part of my life. I grabbed a couple pens, and I think I just brought like 3 colors of gouache. And so I had a really limited palette, a limited art supply kit, because I could only take so much. It was just a backpack. It's all we had. And what happened was, on this trip, I was walking around and I was looking at things and seeing all these inspiring things. And I started to learn some things. I started to realize that it wasn't about all these fancy materials. It was almost like the tyranny of choice was getting in my way. But in fact, I could just do drawings. That was enough. I didn't need all these things. All I needed to do was start paying attention to what interested me. And that was easy, because we're just on a trip. And I mean, talk about interesting and cool. Like, Tahiti is so beautiful, and the beaches, and New Zealand and India and South Pacific, and all the Malaysia, Indonesia, all these amazing places. And I pulled out, this is the book that I had on that trip. And you can see all these drawings that I did in here. And I just started, and there's little things that I found on the street. Look at this totally racist, it's like this darky peppermint. It's just so grotesque, but I thought that was so gross, and I glued it on there. But all these drawings, I just started drawing. This was a little bit of the gouache that I had, and I filled this book. And so I'm telling you the story because this book, this is what got me back to the surface of things. I came back from this trip so connected to my art and what I wanted to do. I became so excited, and I learned some things. And this is what I want to share with you. I learned some things from this experience, from this trip, from this limitation, from this reduction of stuff. And I thought I would share that with you. The first, most important, and it's one of the primary things I teach when I'm working with people, is understanding the value and the importance of experimentation. To be making art, be making things that are not results, not so focused on the result. My only goal was just to pass the time, to just have time to try things and see what was happening and follow what interests me. And of course we want to get results. And I realize that, and many of us are doing this as a career, and you can't just be experimenting all the time. But to understand that investing in a little bit of experimentation is like an insurance policy for the long-term viability of your art, right? Dawn, nice to see you here. Maura is saying, but I can't draw. It's not about a specific technique or it's what interests you, right? Like, maybe you just like to use colors, sample colors from the world. You can do that. The reason I got into drawing, and by the way, I don't know how to draw. I couldn't draw very well realistically. And if you look at this stuff, I'll show you, it's all made up. It's all like imaginative stuff I did out of my imagination. I'll see a picture here. Like, there's this weird fat dragon, and I loved making stuff up, but I was seeing things. There's a page in here from Bali. This was, I was looking at it, and it was really stimulating looking at this stuff. Where is it? I just saw it, and it was, anyway, it was kind of like, these were some of the things from Indonesia and Bali, the motifs and the snakes and the fabric, and just looking at that and kind of riffing off it and copying those things and adding them to this book. So when I saw it, it would light me up. But this idea of experimentation is so important. So if you're feeling a little low in your work and it keeps turning out the same, just take 20 minutes, in the beginning of your art or on a separate thing, and play, experiment. It's really an investment in this whole career thing. It's what saved me. The other thing, the second idea, and there's 5 here I want to share with you, is this idea of iteration, is on variables. Take like how I eliminated all these materials, all these brushes, all these colors. Simplify it, simplify it down, reduce the variables. When you reduce the variables, you can see better what you're doing. It's like it was all done in a book. All the pieces of paper were 5 inches by 7 inches. It was all done pretty much with a pen, and a HB pencil, you know. And then I started noticing things. I started getting into the work because I wasn't struggling with like, well, how do you use encaustic or whatever? And that was a big payoff for me. So eliminating things, limit the palette, limit the size, put some constraints down, right? This third idea, which kind of relates to that idea of variables, is reducing that variables, is around the consistency. Is not a jail sentence. Like, we tend to not want to do the same thing over again. And I understand that, but in a process, be completely free in what you're making, in the art making part of it, all of that, like just go for it. But set up a process that's kind of similar for, I'm going to work the same way. I'm going to work with these materials, or I'm going to work on this size, or I'm going to work at this time. That's really helpful, right? That can be really helpful because the other parts all over the map. It's like crazy. This art making thing's crazy. So having some things that are like grounded can be really, really helpful. So that's important. That's it's kind of important. It's super important to remember. And it's not like you're going to be stuck in that forever, because that's what I used to think. It's like, I don't want to do the same thing ever. I don't want to do the same thing. If I do the same thing, if I repeat myself, or if it's similar. But now I understand why people riff off the same ideas. They'll do a show and all the work kind of is similar, because when you can do that, there's a tremendous freedom in it. You can really sort of taste the subtlety of what you're involved in. It allows you to drop into it deeper. And the fourth idea here, Sandy's saying, now I have quality brushes and paints, more confident in my work. I totally get that. Like, it took me, I still have, I don't think I have it here. There was a brush I bought in art school that was so expensive, and I never wanted to use it. And I think I still have it. It was a fan brush. And it was, at the time, it was $30, which was so much. But I just don't use, it's more for watercolor, so that's hilarious. Yeah, so Michelle, like doing a warm-up before starting your project. Michelle, when we're talking about experimentation, which I think that comment's related to, it has to do with, I build it into the practice. I build it into when I'm starting, when I'm, whatever I'm making, I just take 10 or 15 minutes before I even start. And I just work on that painting in an experimental way, regardless of what I'm going to do. And what's crazy is that often what I'm doing and what comes out of that really helps the thing. It doesn't even matter what the thing is. It's like, oh, well, now I've got all these rich colors in the background, or, oh, I discovered that red with that green. I would have never done that, but it happened by accident. I'm going to do the whole painting like that, right? So let serendipity into this practice a little bit. Let chance and risk and some of the just sort of possibilities fall into place instead of trying to calculate it all the time. So that's what experimentation does. It drops you into the presence. When you're present, you're just enjoying yourself, and you can see and feel what's happening better. As soon as you start worrying about the outcome or what the work's supposed to look like, then you're leaving it and it becomes not as interesting, and the work kind of doesn't get as interesting. The best stuff, I think, comes when you're able to play, when you're able to just wander around a little bit and enjoy yourself, right? Yeah, okay, well, cool. I wanted you to really make sure you got that point, because that was a huge thing for me. I mean, in a way, this book and these places, it was experimentation. It was all about experimentation, trying different ways of being in my art, but also in a way living, like, oh my God, look at these people live like this, or how about this, or live here, or this is what it's like in a cold climate, or this is what it's like in a third world country, or, all of that fuels and opens you up. Um, so this idea of, being afraid of having some consistency, of reducing things down, it allows for more expansive possibilities. The fourth idea is this idea of momentum, that it's created by doing a little, narrowing the goalposts in a little bit of the possibilities and going deeper, right? What I was doing when I got out of school and when I was trying to do, I was doing everything, and I was going really wide and really shallow. It wasn't satisfying. That's why I kept switching around. That's why I kept thinking, well, I'll try this, I'll try that. It's like fool's gold. Nothing felt genuine. Nothing felt meaningful or tangible. And I know when that's happening for me now, what I have to do. It's like I just have to like bring it in, rein it in a little, narrow in that goalposts, and spend a little bit more time and go deeper. It makes powerful work. It really does. If you do one thing and that gives you a sense of something you've discovered, do another one like it, do two more like it, do four more like it. It's like a whole world opens up. Ruth's saying, there's the ticket for me. I'm all over the place. Yeah. Now look it is really exciting, and it's really awesome to try a whole bunch of things and just be like a kid in a candy store, right? I'm not saying to not do that, but I am saying when you're ready, if you're trying to get your work to a more meaningful place, something a little more substantial, try limiting it down a little bit. Now, what you limit down, be thoughtful about that. Make sure that the things that you limit down are the things that are really meaningful to you. So you have to start choosing better. This idea of discernment, was this a yes or a no? Being a little bit more proactive about what those things are. Don't just let everything in. Just if you're only going to have 4 things to work with, make sure you really love them. Make sure that it's the right colors that you like, or the sketchbook, or whatever it is, right? I mean, this story of going on that trip, I chose this size because it fit in the backpack, but by the way, this started my whole desire and love of making these, and I've kept going with them, so that's another thing. These habits are created and ways of being that, when you narrow, that you carry, that you can keep doing, right? Yeah, you can limit the brushes, limit the size maybe, Ruth, of what you're working on. And look, the way you figure out what it is you kind of maybe want to focus on for a little while is look at the last 20 things you've made. What really resonates for you? Put that right on your table, move the other things away and say, you know what, I'm going to stay over here. I'm going to let this influence this new kind of work. It's like, what's tricky about art making there isn't really like a roadmap for any of us. We have to create our own. And that's where, this is something I just talk a lot about, and because this was something that was missing for me. And I think it's missing for a lot of people. And what's cool is that the ingredients of it, the checkpoints, the goalposts, the milestones, they're all in the work that you've made before, all as you lead up to this. So you just merely need to kind of look back a little and start paying attention more, and then letting some things go and focus more in on what's lighting you up, and derive the work from that a bit. That's a really great way to do that. Yeah. Cool. All right. So Danielle's saying this is too physiologically to me. I need more concrete example. Okay, let's see. Okay, so if you've got a whole bunch of different materials you're using and a whole bunch of different sizes, you're painting 6-foot paintings, you're painting on a sketchbook, you're painting with acrylic paint, you're trying to do drawings, you're dabbling around with sculpture, you go to a class on stained glass, and you feel kind of thin and things are stretched. What I'm suggesting is, of all the things you've been doing, what's the one thing that really is most interesting to you if you had to choose? And I'm not saying you have to choose forever, but if you want to go deeper, you got to narrow it down a little bit. So it might be building stained glass windows, or it might be, the painting, and focus in on that a little bit. And what you'll find as you do less, that the world of that narrowing, it becomes even more. So like, I don't even know if I need, it's not even about the materials anymore. The world is so big. I don't even have the time to explore all the things that I'm discovering. And I'm just keep making the same paintings. It's kind of amazing. So that's maybe that helps you a little bit. Um, Okay, Gwen's saying I'm all over the map too. You're not alone, Gwen. This is super challenging. This is one of the primary things that in my workshops and my different programs that I help people with, and it kind of works like in a workshop or a thing. You're like, okay, take me on this journey, and show me what to do, and it's narrowed down for you. And that's why people make progress in workshops. You come, you do one kind of thing, and you take a dedicated amount of time and you kind of do it. So that can be, that's really, really helpful. Anita's saying, I'm in love with art painting. It's awesome. Yeah, Ellen also. Cool. And Lisa's saying, worked great for Georgia O'Keeffe. Yeah. And, that's the thing. We don't know these people, but when you look at the work, uh, that's the common denominator in it. You can see and feel the depth of the work. That's the work that we love. That's the work that resonates for us. And when we see it, it moves us. That conversation that Georgia O'Keeffe had with herself, it was deeply personal. And she shares it with us in the artifacts of those paintings, and the paintings that she was making one after another, and it's like a story, that she was having with herself, is this inquiry that was just got better and better and deeper and more spiritual, and it's like so personal. And I just love that when you look at work like that. That's the kind of work that resonates. That's the kind of work that people can connect to. That's the kind of work that people want to own and bring home. They want to feel you in that way. Sometimes we can't feel, like in my earlier work, I don't know how much of myself was in it. I mean, there was a lot of effort. I got an A for trying a lot of things, but I was everywhere because I didn't start choosing. And of course, it's a process. I mean, this is how you evolve. You start narrowing it down a little bit. You start choosing the better things over the things that aren't as interesting. Chantel saying, I usually paint in oil, and recently I've decided to warm up my beginning of the day by playing with other mediums. And I do so in the same small sketchbook and rediscovering acrylic, pastel, and playfulness. Yeah, that's so great, right? It's just like this avenue to it just brings in all this new stuff. I believe, and what I see is when we play, when we're experimenting and trying things, that's when our soul comes out. That's the part of us that we're not trying to control. It just emerges. And that's the intuition. And that's what makes our art. That's what makes really strong art, is having that in there where we let go of control a little. And if you're trying to get the same result every time, if you're just so white knuckling it to make sure this thing turns out, there isn't a lot of opportunity for that sort of more intuitive, risky spaciousness part to come in. We kind of want to have both. It's a balance between that intuition-y part and the part of us that's really really determined and logical and using information. We need that, but then we also need to just be able to completely let go. Combining those two things is the ticket. And it's really fun. Sometimes you feel like you're in one world more than another. but you definitely need both. So cool. Um, Danielle saying, I paint plein air, oil painting, and I want to paint on a wall, more abstract stuff. Why not both? Right. Well, it's not that you have to just reduce it and do one thing only. Just be aware of just reducing down, just have some, if you feel like you're not making progress in an area because you're spread so thin, just simplify it down. I mean, I do, well, I really do one kind of thing now with my painting, but I also offset it with this where I'm teaching art, right? So it depends on what your mix is that you want to create. But there's nothing wrong with, like, you know, experimenting, doing a different kind of thing, playing off of what you're doing. I'm not saying just do one thing and one thing only, but understand that does, having some limits on what you're doing and how you're doing it in that process allows you to, like, expand and push through. If you're bored in an area, for example, try limiting it down and see what happens. Take some of the variables away. Right, letting go. Exactly, Steph. Um, so that fifth point, so we've talked about the value of experimentation, reducing the variables of how you're, um, the variables in your process or the materials you're using. Um, Being okay with doing the same thing for a while, the consistency, right? Like, and I'm not saying make the same painting, but maybe the same idea behind behind the painting, or the same materials, or the same size, or something that it feels the same way, right? Like you get better at it each time through. It's crazy. That's how you become familiar with something. You make art around it, and then when you go back to that, it's like so much more familiar, and then you could be able to drop into it even in a deeper way, and it's an iteration. It builds. You're stacking the benefit instead of just doing random stuff that's not connected. It's kind of almost like creating a through line a little bit with what you're doing. um, it's like your story. You're making a story in a sense. um, uh, Teresa saying, what works for me, it's purposeful, triggers my heart, and it's unique right from the start. Yeah, yeah. Yes, play and play more. Sandra saying, love process and playing. Michelle saying, I used to do abstract by wiping off the excess paint in my brush. Then I would build on that. It worked out pretty good. Yeah, having just like this area where you can just take that material and just like put it somewhere without thinking about it. I always have, I call them a throwaway panel, a throwaway painting in my studio that I'm working alongside other ones. So it's just always there, and I can white paint on it. And I swear this thing is most of the time looking better than what I'm trying to make. So um, cool. Doreen, awesome. Nice to see you here. And Alex, from YouTube, I make custom sports cards, and a lot of the time I focus on team-oriented designs, NFL. Oh, cool. How do I put more self-expression into my work without losing the team or player angle? Great question, right? So, Alex, try to write down like what it is about those team cards that attracts you. Now, obviously, you've got to get the logo kind of, so people, if you're trying to communicate that it is the team, but maybe it's the bold colors, like the NFL and all those, they use that. It's really like kind of primary, and they're flat graphics. So you can take that and abstract it a little, and it'll still feel like the NFL. Right. So you don't need a lot for it to feel that way, but push it, abstract it a little bit more. That would be the way I could do it. What I'm saying really is identifying these cards, what you like, and push that further. And it just has to be an NFL card. It's like even the size of it. I mean, think about all the varieties of playing cards there are out there, right? It just has to have a queen of spades. It just has to have an ace. But all the decorations, all the motifs, you can do anything. You could do it with bright colors. You can do it with engravings. You can do it with, so that, think about cards, playing cards. You have so much freedom, and you can still stay within the constraints of that parameter, which is really cool, by the way. That is a way to kind of like limit it. It's like it is an NFL card. It's a playing card, right? It is that sports card, but it's been pushed further. So I'd encourage you to like push further with it. Um, okay. Um, so experimentation, reducing the variables, being okay with being consistent on something, that it's not a jail sentence that you get to change later if you want. Just do it for 5 weeks, see what happens. Um, Creating momentum by going deeper and a little bit more narrow is really helpful. And then the fifth one is what we've been talking about, is just creating space and breathing room in your practice. And what I mean by that is being really present with it in when you can be, dropping into it, not trying for an outcome, just letting some outside input come in. Being, when we're able to be present, we can see what's happening as we're responding to what's going on in front of us in our painting. If a color comes out that you love, do more of it. Give yourself the freedom to just chase things and go after what's happening in front of you, to enjoy it, to just like, whoa, this is beautiful what's happening here. Or I don't like that part, but I like this part. I'll do more of that over here. There's a certain amount of freedom you have. It's kind of like going for a walk. If you've only got 10 minutes, you don't get to stop. You got to get from A to B. That's different. That's like a task. But if you really want to go for a walk, don't set a timer. Just go for a walk and go. Don't go with any endpoint in mind. Just wander. Find what interests you and investigate it. Go further, turn left here, go right there, spend time under a tree, look at those leaves, notice the sounds, all of that. That's being present. And that takes a kind of spaciousness that you actually can kind of turn that on sometimes, even if you're busy. Just give yourself a little chunk, a little window. This is what we need for the new input to come in to keep our art and us lit up, right? So cool. Carolyn's saying, I definitely need a throwaway painting where I can let loose freely and turn off my logical mind. Collage seems to be a big freeing tool for me for some reason. So collage is a freeing tool, and I'll tell you why. Because collage, and this is just my theory on it, and I'm not saying this is the reason, but for me, what I love about collage, and we use these in workshops, is you can just look at a table of a whole bunch of stuff and then go, okay, there's a picture of a bird, there's a picture of a knight, there's all these different things, and you can pick something up completely random, bring it over and put it on your art. And it's just amazing. It's like instant. And you can say yes or no right away. Anybody, even people who have just started making art, they can collage. They can take things and hold it up. They don't even need to know the reasons why. They can just go, this works or it doesn't. It's kind of amazing. And so that's what's so great about it. You're bringing, and it's surprising. When you put two different things together, what happens? It really lights you up. And if you take something and take it away, you add it, pull it away, add it, pull it away, get different things. So collage is a wonderful way to like jumpstart things. So I totally love that. Yeah, Gillian saying, I was at your last workshop online. I love the way we played, adding things from life. You had maps. Yeah, so we did the breadcrumbs challenge. I think that's what we did a treasure. I did a treasure island map with Mark's treasure. I really freed up after that. Yeah, it's so great. It's just taking this art thing and making it your own, and in the way that lights you up. So cool. Steph, I'm just returning to painting, and my first big painting was to paint ugly, so liberating. I'm loving how it looks. That's fantastic. And painting larger is kind of scarier. It's harder, it's bigger, it's harder to pull off. Things, they're stronger, something that's ugly is really ugly, but in the inverse, when you like it, you love it because it's like as big as you. Teresa's saying, I see more clouds, shadows in the clouds when I walk. I'm more conscious of the details in nature outside. Yeah, I mean, that's what I love about artists. So it's like, we're just super sensitive, and we're the people that like, the music's too loud, or, like, can you just, that color in that room, I can't be in there, Anyway, So anyway, I'm going to wrap this up today, you guys. But really appreciate you being here on YouTube as well as Facebook. It's always fun to share this stuff, and it's actually helpful to talk to you and hear your feedback, because I think this can be this is some neat stuff here that I'm working on. So I appreciate the conversation. So we are we are launching our free workshop, by the way, that's coming out. Hopefully, a lot of you guys have joined. You can join. That's at artlifefree.com. Starts Monday, less than a week away. It's going to be going next week. It's going to be incredible. I'll be sharing some really cool information that can completely really shift how you see your work and allow you to improve it really, really easily. So I hope you can join me. It's going to be amazing. We've got a lot of folks coming in right now, and we're starting on Monday. So, okay, thanks so much for being here, guys. Roxana, Teresa, Gillian, appreciate it. Okay, Nicola.